a world hero whose name was, quote, included in anthologies of modern immortals alongside Einstein, Bernard Shaw, Gandhi, Marie Curie, and Edison, end quote, Ignacy Jan Paderewski was more than just, quote, the biggest box office attraction in the history of the piano, end quote. He represented the epitome of the Romantic spirit, not only as a pianist of the highest celebrity, but also as an estimable composer, humanitarian, philanthropist, political figure, writer, and true gentleman. The list of his personal and professional acquaintances reads like a who's who in late 19th and early 20th century society, and he was without doubt the most decorated personage ever to play the piano. Knighted by King George V in 1925, Paderewski counted among his circle of friends such figures as Mark Twain, Henry James, Andrew Carnegie, Joseph Pulitzer, Walter Damrosch, William Waldorf Astor, and George Vanderbilt. He was awarded 10 honorary doctoral degrees from the prestigious universities of Oxford, Cambridge, Yale, and New York. As a proud Polish patriot, Paderewski used the many cities in which he gave recitals as an opportunity to discuss politics with such world leaders as Aristide Briand, Stephen Pishon, Arthur Balfour, and Theodore Roosevelt. Quote, his intimate friendships with many of the leading statesmen of Europe and America paved the way for future political activity. Within a few years, Paderewski came to be considered one of the experts on matters connected with the problems of Poland. End quote. The conductor, Walter Damrosch, once remarked how the world was astounded, quote, that a musician who had spent his public life for over 30 years in piano recitals and composition should demonstrate such remarkable gifts of statesmanship, end quote. As a Polish patriot, Paderewski served his country during the First World War, establishing in 1915 a Polish relief fund. Paderewski also served as a spokesperson for the Polish National Committee, an organization formed in 1917 and led by Polish politician and statesman Roman Dmowski. The committee, quote, represented the anti-German, pro-Ally, Western outlook in Polish politics, end quote. Working closely with American President Woodrow Wilson in 1917 on behalf of the committee, Paderewski built a Polish army of nearly 100,000 men to be led by a General Joseph Haller. Shortly thereafter, on the 16th of January 1919, Paderewski became both the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of his newly independent Poland, representing his nation at the Paris Peace Conference, where he signed the Versailles Treaty in the summer of that year. Upon meeting Paderewski, Georges Clemenceau, leader of France during the First World War and a major voice behind the Versailles Treaty, remarked, quote, "So you have left music and become a politician. What a fall!" End quote. A man who spoke multiple languages, in addition to being well read in a variety of diverse subjects ranging from literature and world politics to agriculture, Paderewski captivated with his sophistication and worldly charm elite members of society, artistic intellects and political figures, as well as factory workers and farmers of the American Midwest. The public could not get enough of Paderewski, and on many occasions traveled great distances to catch a glimpse of the famous pianist's lavish Pullman coach. Others put away their hard-earned cash in order to attend a Paderewski recital. In 1914, a young country girl by the name of Nellie R. Cameron Bates wrote about her love for Paderewski. Quote, "You who dwell in the large cities where the advent of great artists is an everyday affair can hardly imagine the sensations of a little country girl when she hears a great artist for the first time. All my life long I had dreamed of Paderewski." End quote. Born in 1860 to a family of minor Polish gentry, Paderewski made his Paris and London debuts in 1888 and 1890 respectively. By the time he made his first of 20 American tours in 1891, the solo piano recital had established itself as a recognized cultural institution, for which there was now a standardized canon of literature with which the public, who often played the piano, was relatively well acquainted. At a time when such figures as Enrico Caruso and Sarah Bernhardt graced the operatic and theatrical stages of the world, Paderewski became a symbol of the grand tradition of keyboard virtuosity, and by far the most famous pianist after Franz Liszt and Anton Rubinstein. When Liszt played the first solo piano recital in 1839, he not only liberated the instrument from its subservient role in the chamber setting, but with his long hair, physical good looks, and stunning attire, created a public image of what a pianist should look like. With his dazzling technical facility, Liszt left his audiences spellbound, establishing for himself a reputation which many pianists would in later years strive to recreate, declaring that, quote, "Le concert c'est moi," end quote, the concert is myself. Liszt initiated a powerful trend which would continue throughout the rest of the 19th century. Listomania, as it came to be known, took hold of Europe city by city, and audiences felt that he was the greatest pianist who ever lived. Unlike Liszt, who spent the entire course of his life in Europe despite rumors of a possible American tour, many fine European pianists came to perform in America, among them Leopold de Meyer in 1845, Henry Herz in 1846, Sigismund Thalberg in 1856, and Hans von Bülow in 1875. Anton Rubinstein, however, who made his debut in 1872, was the greatest of them all. Quote, "With his smoldering temperament, Kalmuck features, and black, disheveled leonine mane, Rubinstein was the very symbol of the piano's power and pride. With Liszt's retirement from the concert stage, Rubinstein reigned supreme over the pianistic kingdom in an age that produced virtuosi of legendary status." End quote. While American concert life prior to the 1840s essentially replicated the European experience, concert life after the 1840s, quote, encouraged a new influx of performers, usually of a higher rank than those previously heard. End quote. Though American audiences were still getting accustomed to the standardization of a canon of works for solo piano, the bulk of which was made up of works by Bach, Beethoven, Schubert, Schumann, Chopin, and Liszt, Rubinstein's fierce and tempestuous brand of virtuosity sparked a flame amongst concert-goers. Never before had the American public heard playing of that sort. Quote, "The fame of Rubinstein," end quote, claimed the New York Herald, quote, "has spread beyond the circle of ordinary concert-goers and has already taken hold of the general public." End quote. Despite being a composer of an enormous output, Rubinstein came to be recognized as the greatest virtuoso since Liszt. While there were many virtuosos after Liszt, Rubinstein was by far the most popular. The profound effect that he had upon audiences as a virtuoso who also happened to compose signaled a turning point in the roles of successive pianists. The pianist-composer element of late 19th century pianism will be discussed in Chapter 2. With the death of Rubinstein in 1894, the American public eagerly awaited the next pianist who would epitomize Romantic pianism in the styles of Liszt and Rubinstein. Having had successful debuts in Paris and London several years earlier, Paderewski, who, like Rubinstein, was an accomplished composer, headed for America, where he made his debut on the 17th of November, 1891, at New York's newly built Carnegie Hall. The distinguished critic, James Huneker, wrote that, quote, Ignaz Jan Paderewski played the piano last night at the new music hall and played it in such a wonderful manner as to send a huge audience mad with enthusiasm and recall memories of Rubinstein in his prime. End quote. A similar remark was made by Queen Victoria, for whom Paderewski had performed at Windsor Castle, much to Her Majesty's delight. Quote, Such power and such tender feeling. I really think he is quite equal to Rubinstein, she wrote in her diary. End quote. Audiences were to find in Paderewski the next link in the tradition of Rubinstein and Liszt.